Hello, welcome to today's episode of Dufresne Faith Journal. We're back with more questions. We're going to continue on like we did in last episode, so we'll just jump right into it. There's another question here. How did you start pastoring?
You know, we have moved back here to California because God told my husband, get in position. So he moved us from Tulsa to California because he said, I want you to get in position for the last day revival. So Ed, of course, traveled. And so he said one day, he said, God wants us to start a church here. And I wasn't surprised in the sense of he was a man who started churches. And so I wasn't surprised about that. But my concern was I enjoyed traveling. And I thought, I'm not called to be a pastor. And so my concern is he's going to be on the road and he's going to leave me at home to take care of the church, but I'm not a pastor. So I didn't quite know how that was going to work. So of course we started the church and he went on the road. And then I kept saying to him, you need to get a pastor in here. You need to get a pastor in here. And so he would tell me, he'd say, you're the pastor. I said, I'm not the pastor. God hasn't told me I'm the pastor. And of course,
Why did you say that? Because you thought you were called to travel?
I decided.
God will give me my heart's desire. I'm going to do what I want.
So I decided.
He's that good.
So I decided, I assumed because I always had travel in my heart, but really it was, and I got to travel with Ed all through pastoring, but because that was present, I thought that was primary then. Yeah. And sometimes you can have things in your heart, but they're for later. And so I just assumed I'm not a pastor. And so I certainly didn't ask God because I didn't want to find out differently,
Yeah.
And so he would tell me, you're the pastor. I said, I'm not the pastor. You need to get an associate pastor in here under you. And so I did all the services. I led the music, I preached, I ran everything like I was the pastor and did that for 4 years without realizing that I was the pastor. And so one day we were in a service, we were having a camp meeting or a convention, and a guest minister got up to preach. And when he did, I fell into the Spirit, and the Spirit of God came upon me, and God spoke to me and says, do you love me? Now I should have caught it when he asked that question. It's scriptural, and I didn't catch it. I didn't put two and two together. And he said, do you love me? And I said, well, of course I do. And he said, then feed my sheep, Pastor. And I was just stunned. So I got up. Well, during that service, God spoke to me and said, on next Sunday, he says, I want you to get up and you tell the people you're the pastor. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, this is going to be revelation to them because it was a revelation.
Oh my gosh, finally.
Yeah.
You think they're going to be shocked?
Yeah. And so I got up the next Sunday and I announced, I'm the pastor. And they go,
okay.
Yeah, we know. It was like I was the only one in the building who didn't know it. And so the thing is that the word says, if you be willing and obedient, you'll eat the good of the land. The willingness is a heart issue. The obedience is an action issue. And so I was doing the action of being a pastor, but the inside had not agreed with that. Yeah. And that's where a lot of people struggle. A lot of people miss it is because sometimes their insides are not in agreement with what God has for them, and that's why they struggle. Mm-hmm. That's why they go through difficulties and oppositions, even financially or physically, is because they need to check, is there some part of me that's not agreeing with the will of God or the plan of God for my life? So that was over 25 years ago. So I pastored for over 25 years, and I would have never dreamt then that I would be doing that for 25 years. But of course I loved it once I agreed with it, And
when God let you know you're the pastor and it's your job to feed the sheep, was at that point was it a struggle to adjust, or did it adjust automatically? You're like, well, this is what I've been doing, let me keep doing it.
The grace for the pastoral office, the anointing for the pastoral office came on me, but I didn't recognize it.
Prior to
even, yes, because even before Ed started the church, I kept recognizing I enjoyed traveling, but there was something that was unsatisfied because when you travel, you don't get to stay with the people to see their progress. And there came a desire in me to see the spiritual progress of the people we were ministering to. Well, that was the office of the pastor coming into play there. That's what the pastor desires, is to see the spiritual progression of the people. And so I recognized that, but I didn't recognize that that was part of the pastoral office to help me label it. Another thing is God gave me the vision for the church. And I recognized, why is he giving me the vision? He gives Ed the vision for, the ministry.
Yeah.
So I didn't put two and two together on those two issues. If I had of, I would have recognized that God was dealing with me.
And the next question, in the same lines of pastoring, what is the best thing you would say about being a pastor and pastoring?
What I mentioned, and that is to see the progress of the Word in people's lives. It is so rewarding because the Word does a work in everyone's life who takes it in and does it, and it will progress at different rates in different people's lives based on how much they give themselves to that Word. But the reward of seeing lives come in, homes, families come into the church that are really struggling, facing a lot of difficulties, and see their whole lives change. The reward of seeing the Word work is, I think, one of the greatest rewards of pastoring.
That's good. In pastoring, what is the one trip up you've seen the most often that occur with people?
Those who would allow offense to enter in. Because if offense enters in, offense maybe with a fellow congregation member, offense with maybe leadership in the church, staff members or department workers, the devil wants, the Word says that God sets us in the body of Christ the way it pleases Him. So He will direct and guide you to a local church and to a pastor. That's where your life is going to succeed. It says those that are planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of their God. So to flourish, you have to be planted in a local church under a pastor. And when you find the right pastor and you find the right congregation where you fit, the devil, of course, will do everything he can to help interfere with you finding that place. But once you find it, then he does all he can to get you out of it. And so I have seen over 25 years of pastoring too many people that fell prey to and yielded to offense, unforgiveness, and different things. And sometimes it wasn't even offense with the church. Sometimes it's offense with their own marriage, offense with relatives, and it distracted them and pulled them out of the church. And I've seen the destruction that happened when people, not because people left our church, but because they stepped outside the plan. It's, you can't, no pastor should say and threaten people with the idea, if you leave our church, bad things are going to happen. But if you leave the plan of God, that's where the danger is.
That's where you'll trip up.
And if the plan of God is for you to be at that church, you have to protect that place. And this is the important thing. Where God puts you, protect it. Protect it from offense, protect it from bitterness, protect it from unforgiveness, protect it from other people who don't have the same connection to that place. And I've seen what happens when people leave the church that God has put them in. Their homes fall apart, their health falls apart, problems with their children, and because these things don't happen the day they leave, sometimes they happen a year or 2 or even 5 years after they leave, so they don't make the connection that it was because of how they exited their local church and exited being under the pastor. There's a safety being under a pastor. And people say, well, I can go to any church. Yeah, but if God didn't put you there, your supply isn't there. It's not the same. Well, they preach the Word. They may preach the Word, but is that where God put you? So you have to protect the place God put you. Just like you had to protect when God puts a marriage together, you have to protect that. Anything God gives you, you have to protect.
That's good. And would you say if you see someone that's offended with somebody in the church, or maybe with the pastor, do you see that offense trickle into other areas of their life? Does it snowball?
Well, I know how the spirit of offense works, and it doesn't want to live alone. It's got to gain companionship to feel that it's correct. If someone's offended, they need somebody to tell them they're right in their offense so that they can peacefully stay in their offense, or if I could say this, willingly stay in their offense.
Yeah.
And so if they can gather somebody to say, yeah, you're right, then they'll stay there and in that offense. And so offense looks for company. So that's what you have to decide is, I will not company or borrow someone else's offense. Because sometimes I've seen in a church that people will create friendships in the church that will pull them away from their pastor. Never have a stronger connection with anyone in your church above the connection with your pastor. Because other people can come in and they can get into offense, or they can get into some kind of a difficulty or struggle. And because you become close with them in the church, you'll start borrowing that, and you'll start entering into their difficulty.
And if you have that relationship with your pastor, you'll protect it.
You'll protect it, and you
regardless
realize,
of what someone's trying to get you to say.
And you realize that no relationship in the church is more important than my relationship with my pastor. So if they want to leave, I'm not going to leave with them because I'm their friend.
Yeah, they can just go.
They're going to have to go alone, because my most important connection is with my pastor.
Yeah.
And whoever their pastor is, you know, they need to not put any relationship, any fellowship in the church above the fellowship of their pastor.
And then they go, oh, it's my friend, I want to stand by them.
And see, pastors don't go to dinner with them on Friday night. The friends do. But still, that's not the role of the pastor to go to dinner with them and have that kind of a connection that they may have. It's a different connection. It's a spiritual connection. It's a higher connection with the pastor. And so many people, many times, will value a fellowship in the church more than they value the connection with the pastor, and that's dangerous. That'll get them into trouble.
That's good. That's a help to a lot of people, I'm sure, that hear this.
Yeah, and the thing is that if it weren't for that pastor, you wouldn't have even had that fellowship.
Yeah.
And
just have to get the priorities in line.
Yeah, because their success of their family, their home, their marriage, their business, their health is connected to it, and their prosperity.
That's right. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. You do not want to miss the next episode. We have a lot more questions, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching today's show. Be sure to check out all the latest episodes on our YouTube page. For more information, follow us on Facebook or visit our website at dufresneministries.org.